Naughty Dog is saying that they are moving on from Uncharted. This is a VGC article by Tom Ivan. Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann has said the studio has moved on from the Uncharted series and could do the same with The Last of Us, should it decide not to proceed with a third mainline series entry. The Last of Us series has sold over 37 million copies since its debut in 2013 and is currently in the spotlight thanks to the successful launch of an HBO TV adaptation this month. Naughty Dog is also developing a standalone Last of Us multiplayer game, which will include its own story and a new cast of characters. Despite the franchise's commercial and critical success, Druckmann has claimed that Naughty Dog's parent company, Sony, wouldn't pressure the company into continuing the story of Ellie and Abby that was told in 2020's The Last of Us Part 2. Excuse me. He told BuzzFeed that if the studio can come up with a compelling story for Part 3 and is passionate about the project, it will make it. If not, it might decide to move on from the series like it has chosen to do with its other blockbuster franchise, Uncharted. Quote, I know there's a bunch of people wondering about The Last of Us Part 3 and whether that will be a thing or not, he said. Quote, all I could say is at Naughty Dog, we're very, very privileged that our publisher is Sony, which means Sony funds our games, supports us, and we're owned by Sony. They have supported us every step of the way to follow our passions, meaning that just because something is successful, people think there's all this pressure and we have to make a sequel. That's not the case. For us, Uncharted was insanely successful. Uncharted 4 was one of our best-selling games. And we're able to put our final brushstroke on that story and say that we're done. We're moving on. Likewise with The Last of Us. It's up to us whether we want to continue it or not, he said. Quote, our process is the same thing we did when we did Part 2, which is if we can come up with a compelling story that has this universal message and statement about love, just like we did with the first and second game, then we will tell that story. If we can't come up with something and we have a very strong ending with Part 2, and that will be the end. Druckmann said in April 2021 that a story outline has been written for a potential third game in the series, but that it wasn't currently being developed. In a recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Druckmann, who also co-produced and co-wrote the HBO show, hinted that a potential second season of the TV series would cover The Last of Us Part 2, and that Naughty Dog might have plans for the third entry in the series. Quote, I think there's more story to tell, he said. Connor.
Yeah.
Uncharted is being moved away from by Naughty Dog, and maybe even potentially The Last of Us. What are your thoughts?
Well, I know how you feel, and I'm kind of in the same way. I think it's, I would want them to move on to something different. Last of Us seems like there is potential for Last of Us, first of all. But just because there's potential for another sequel doesn't mean there needs to be one. And, if we get it, I'm not going to be, upset about it. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of Part 2, I'll play it, maybe even enjoy it. Who knows? But overall, it doesn't need it. Uncharted, on the other hand, I'm really happy it's not getting another game. I once again, potential for a sequel, but less so with Last of Us, should it be done, because even though there is a character to take up the mantle of Nathan Drake, if you played the end of Uncharted 4, you know who I'm talking about. Uncharted is so, to me, intrinsically about Nathan Drake and his story, to just keep on doing it over and over and over again, particularly a studio like Naughty Dog, which I know has potential to make other games, since they've made two extremely interesting franchises. They can go up from there, do crazier things, do better things, do more interesting things, whatever. So I wouldn't really like to see them get too caught up on their existing IPs, though it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to continue with them, but I'm happy with the direction they seem to be taking Naughty Dog and trying to do more things. If the last thing we get about Last of Us is the Last of Us multiplayer, I think if it actually ends up being good, which I have pretty high faith in it doing so, I think we'll be set for Last of Us content for many years to come, especially with the TV show also going on. Kind of the best point to not focus on the games and move on to something better. So, good direction from Neil Druckmann. And the other guy who, the other co-president, who can't remember his name off the top of my head.
I don't know him either. I think Evan Peters comes to mind, but that's an actor, isn't it? I'm pretty much alongside with you, pretty much point for point there. I wouldn't be mad at The Last of Us Part 3, but I would like a break from Last of Us for a minute. We've had, Part 2, we've had Part 1 remake, we've had the TV show. We're getting a multiplayer game coming soon from them. It's a lot of Last of Us, and I would like Naughty Dog to be known more than just the Last of Us guys, much like how for a long time they were the Uncharted guys.
Mm-hmm.
And when they broke away from that and made The Last of Us, look what that did to them as a developer, both reputation wise and artistically. Like, they were totally able to break away from that and give us something, fresh and something revolutionary. And I think Naughty Dog has it in them to do stuff like that again and again and again. They are arguably the best PlayStation studio and arguably the best dev studio in the world. All that said, like, I wouldn't be mad at a part 3. I just kind of want to break from that story for a minute. I want us to sort of live with it and marinate on it and then come back to it. I think there is potential for a story. I'd like to see the redemption of Ellie happen, and to see the more positive sides of love enter the conversation, which I think the first game was very much about the positive side of love, and the second game was very much about the negative sides of it. And I would like it to kind of come full circle and finish with, something positive, like where it started with, personally. Past that, when it comes to Uncharted, I would like to see Naughty Dog hand the reins off to somebody else after some more time. I could use some more time with that. That doesn't even, we could skip PlayStation 5 as a whole and just, PlayStation 6, another studio take over that franchise, because I disagree with you. I don't think Uncharted is Nathan Drake. I think Uncharted is quips and high action, high energy set pieces and fun gameplay and funny characters and so forth. Like, I really think Lost Legacy is one of the better Uncharted games, and Nathan's just not in that at all. And moving on from here, I would like to see just a new sort of take on Uncharted. I would like to see some new systems enter Uncharted, because as we get further and further away from those games, they're becoming less and less interesting. And I think that's because mechanically they don't offer a lot. They offer high energy, they offer memorable characters and fun stories and so forth. And I think we can still have that, but like alongside, more interesting mechanics as well. And I think another studio would sort of add that breath of fresh air to the franchise. But yeah, overall, if whatever Naughty Dog does, I'm on board. What would be most exciting to me is something new from them. But who knows if we're going to be getting that, because entering our third topic of the day, and Connor, your first penny, Last of Us HBO has been confirmed for a second season. This is from IGN by Ryan Dinsdale. The Last of Us has officially been renewed for season 2. HBO announced today it follows a debut that was watched by 22 million viewers domestically and quickly became a hot topic on social media. Following the announcement, executive producer and Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann has confirmed in a tweet that the second season will follow The Last of Us Part 2 game, just as the show's first season is based on the original The Last of Us game. Rumblings of a second season were already underway, despite only 2 episodes of The Last of Us having aired, led by star Bella Ramsey, who said a renewal was likely if viewership remains high. Episode 2, pulling in 22% more viewers on its opening night than Episode 1, the largest week 2 audience growth for any HBO original drama ever, was seemingly enough to convince the network to lock in a second season. Quote, "I'm humbled, honored, and frankly overwhelmed that so many people have tuned in and connected with our retelling of Joel and Ellie's journey," quote, end quote, said Druckmann. Quote, "The collaboration with Craig Mazin, our incredible cast and crew, and HBO exceeded my already high expectations. Now, we have the absolute pleasure of being able to do it again with season 2. On behalf of everyone at Naughty Dog and PlayStation, thank you." Fellow executive producer Craig Mazin added, quote, "I'm so grateful to Neil Druckmann and HBO for our partnership, and I'm even more grateful to the millions of people who have joined us on this journey. The audience has given us the chance to continue, and as a fan of the characters and world Neil and Naughty Dog created, I couldn't be more ready to dive back in."
This isn't surprising.
No, it's not. It's 100% expected. Yeah. Well, first off, you can watch us review and react to every Last of Us HBO episode shortly after they premiere over on twitch.tv/2pennygames every Sunday. I don't know, 10:30ish, depending on whenever we get it done. And it'll, of course, go live on youtube.com/2pennygames immediately afterwards. Connor, if the audience has been following along with our reviews, both you and I are pretty high on the HBO show. And yeah, this is not surprising at all that this is happening.
Yeah, for all of you that don't watch those reviews, though I'd recommend you do so. It's one of those things that one of those shows that even though it's adapted from a video game, it's perfectly serviceable, more than serviceable on a standalone basis. It's just good television, as I told everyone else that I've recommended the show to. You get more enjoyment out of it if you do watch play the games. Obviously, it's kind of par for the course when you're adapting something. You got to get those little nuggets in there for the people that play the source material or know the source material, whatever that might be. But the show is just great so far, minus a couple issues, notably one in the last episode.
you can get that over on our review, youtube.com/2pennygames. Yeah, but I've been enjoying it greatly. I can't wait to see what season 2 has in store for us. I think all of the small changes that they've been making to the story or to the world of The Last of Us in its adaptation for television have been really, really smart, and I'm excited to see what they do for season 2, especially where if we're following the story of part 2, surely that narrative has to play out very differently, because we can't have one season of this character we love and then another season of this character we don't love. Like, that's not going to work in the medium of television like it works for the video game. So we'll have to wait and see on how all of that works. I do want to throw in real quick, shortly before we started recording, we got word that Miss Annie Wersching, who played Tess in the Last of Us video game, passed away from cancer at the age of 45 today, which is January 29th, 2023. Big rest in peace to you, Annie. Thank you so much for your talents and your performance of Tess. Still, I just remember the first time playing The Last of Us, how impactful that character of Tess was to me. She's my favorite character in the game outside of the two mains or the two leads. And to this day, I think Tess sets the standard for the tone of The Last of Us, that the entire journey that character goes on. And I think Annie killed that performance, and to me is still the definitive version of Tess, even though the actor for the show is doing phenomenal as well. But, rest in peace. You will be sorely, sorely missed.